Hello everyone, welcome to CSEC Math Prep. This is Mr. Downer and you are welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you are very welcome. All right, for this video, we intend to go through some past paper questions for those preparing for the CSEC Math exam. We'll be clearly explaining the questions as we go through, and we are intending to touch all categories, right? All categories of the exam. It's good to note that this tutorial, this channel is not a tutorial. What we're doing is going through some past paper questions. However, if you need assistance, csecmathprep@gmail.com. You can contact me there. All right, so let's go. The structure of the math exam to begin with, right, is something that we all should understand for those attempting the exam or approaching the exam. Section 1 has 7 questions, section 2 has 3, right? It's really good to understand how the questions are in terms of what will appear. For all the exam papers since 2018, right, when the syllabus was revised, the questions come in this order. Question 1 and 2, well, it's always that way. Computation, number theory, and consumer arithmetic is always that first question there, right? For question 2, always algebra, geometry and trigonometry, functions and relation, statistics, measurement, sequencing, and investigation. For section 2, algebra, functions, relation and graphs, geometry and trigonometry, vectors and matrices. I can see some of us already, saying, oh, well, algebra is my favorite. I don't like measurement, so on and so forth. Myself, I like algebra myself, and geometry and trigonometry is fun. Vectors and matrices, also not one of those common topics, but it's not hard at all. But everybody in my mind should have at least 7 of these topics that they are very good at. It's really good to have 7 of them that you're good at. It puts you in a really good position for this exam. All right, so what we'll be doing in this 10-part series, right, is covering 5 questions from each of the questions. So for question 1, we'll be covering 5 questions: computation, number theory, and consumer. And for question 2, we'll be covering algebra, but let's go for this video, right? All right, this was 2009, I think. You will see my answer pad here. And when we're through the questions, you will see what marks is allotted. We can look at the marks to determine sometimes, right, the amount of work needed. For 3 marks, good amount of work, right? For 1 mark, it's not much. Either to do one, competition and you're good to go. All right, let's go. So for this question here, right, naturally you can approach fraction a number of ways, and for any other categories, by the way, they can be done more than one way. But since we're just going through, right, my approach for anyone you'll be seeing in this video, I'd add the whole numbers first, right? Because some people, they'll convert the mixed fractions to improper fractions. But when you do that, you end up with larger numbers to work with, right? So I rather adding those whole numbers and then working with the smaller fractions. In that case, I'd find the LCM, the lowest common multiple, or some people would call it the LCD, right? And then write equivalent fractions from it. 3 into 15 goes 5 times, and 5 times 2 is 10. And you say 5 into 15 goes 3 times, and 3 times 1 is 3. 10 over 15 is an equivalent fraction to 2 over 5. And 3 over 15, an equivalent fraction to 1 over 5. And then from here on, we can go straight to the answer. It's 3 and 13 over 15. We can convert this mixed fraction here to improper fraction by multiplying the whole number by the denominator, right? And adding 13, we get 58 over 15. The same answer as the 3 and 13 upon 15. All right, the question is really asking us to divide the top by the bottom here. So it's 58 over 15 divided by, and would convert this fraction here. 6,530 plus 2 is 32/5. And we're going to divide that into 58. But when we're dividing fractions, right, what happens is that we change the sign to multiplication, and then we reciprocate the fraction on the right. Then we cancel what can be canceled. But this question, it'll be grave error if we're finding LCM for this, right? We just cancel what can be canceled. If we divide the 58 and the 32 by 2, we'll have 29, and 2 and 32 goes 16 times. And then 5 can cancel 15 3 times. And then our answer would be 29 upon 3 times 16 is 48. And for that fraction, will be allotted 3 marks for it. Remember, this is not a tutorial, so explanations as you would have it may not be forthcoming, right? All right, so on to the other question now. That values another 3 marks. And really and truly, boom, we pull up the calculators, and this should be very easy. So what's inside the bracket there? 0.0256 will be divided by 25, right? And we'll get 0.001024. For some calculators, you will see 1.024 to the minus 3. That's the standard form. Or if a calculator give you that, just still go ahead to find the square root for it, because that will be the next step here. And the square root is 0.032. But as the question, they want the answer in standard form. If you leave it like this, as many would, you will not get all the mark from it here, the marks there. So in standard form, now one number between 1 and 10 is 3.2 times 10 to the negative 2. And you'll be allotted your 3 marks there. Easy. 6 marks. All right, so the other category in this question 1 here is from consumer arithmetic, and this is wages. All right, so the question is saying that a basic truck driver earns for a 40-hour week, $560. What is his hourly rate? So for a basic week, 40 hours, right? For the rate, we divide how many times 40 can go into that 560. It's 14 times, and that would give us the rate there. $14 per hour. That's it for the rate. Values 1 mark. And for the other part, overtime. Overtime, right? You see, for overtime wage, it is for double time, it's 2 times the regular rate. If you're working overtime at triple time rate, it's 3 times whatever the regular rate is. But for this question, the overtime rate is time and a half, which means for the $14 that we get per hour, you'd multiply by 1.5. And then you multiply by the number of hours you would have worked overtime. So for this question, the answer is $210 for the 10 hours worked overtime. All right. Yeah, we get a 2 mark for that one, right? Congrats. So the total, right, a truck driver would receive for a 55-hour week. Many people, would go ahead to multiply that 55 there, right, by 14, which is the hourly rate. Fair enough. But what happened is that for that 55-hour week, 40 of it was only regular time. So for the 40 hours, naturally, the truck driver was going to get 560. For the other 15 hours now was overtime. It will be 14 times 1.5 times 15, which is 315. And then that total now for that 55-hour week would be $875 for another 3 marks. And that would complete this question 1 in 2009. And can you imagine, you would only have from here 9 more questions and you are through with CSEC, right? Paper 2. All right, so let's move to the next question. This question now, you just pull up the calculator. Pull up the calculator and you're good to go, right? So it's 5.25 divided by 0.015. On the calculator, that's 350 for 1 mark, all right? We are familiar now, if you didn't know, with the square root sign. For some calculators, right, you have to put the square root sign after you have typed in the number that you find the square root for. Ensure to know how your calculator function on this. And 2.55 for another 1 mark. And then CSEC is trying to trick us here, You see, for this question here, you have to 2.236 square that part first. The rule PEMDAS says that we should work out all the powers, right? Before we get to anything else. So the result here, 15.709. Some people use the calculators and plug everything in all at once, and it will lead you to the answer. That, of course, will only give you 1 mark because CSEC is requiring here that you write your answer to 3 significant figures. So 15.709 is 15.7 only to 3 significant figures. Right? All right, you're going good so far. All right, part B of this question, right, is ratio and proportion. And concrete tiles are made using buckets of cement, sand, and gravel in the ratio 1:4:6. Don't be afraid of it, The way I'm going to show you here is standard, right? So you can use it whenever you see a question like this. All right, so how many buckets of gravel are needed for 4 buckets of cement? All right, we can use the given information here, right? The 1 bucket of cement that will go to 6, go with the 6 bucket of gravel. And what the question is asking is this: what if it's not 1 bucket of cement? What if it is 4 buckets of cement? How much gravel would it go with, right? From you write out the fractions like this, right? All you're doing is cross multiplying here. Some people, they would say, what would convert 1 to 4, right? 1 times 4 is 4. That means you must multiply the 6 by 4 as well. If you're not going to remember that or you're reasoning it that way, just do a cross multiplication situation here. So 1 times x is x and 6 times 4 is 24. It so happens that if you're using this method, the other question, 2 marks, you can do it the same way. So 1, right, cement goes to 4 sand. And they're asking now in part 2, 20 buckets of sand are used. How many cement needed, right? So 1 bucket of cement, right? Right. Where's my cursor here? Right. So 1 bucket of cement goes with 4 buckets of sand. So how many cement, right, would go with 20 buckets of sand? And from here, you just do your regular cross multiplying. 4 times x is 4x, right? And 4 and 20 times 1 is 20. Naturally, we're not finished as yet. At this point, we divide both sides by 4. And x is 5. So we need 5 buckets of cement. All right. So for the same 20 buckets of sand, right? How many buckets of gravel needed? All right. So 4 buckets of sand, 6 buckets of cement. So for that 20 bucket of cement, right? How many buckets of sand needed? The same procedure again. It's 4 times x and 6 times 20. And when we divide both sides by 4, x is equal to 30. So the procedure is standard. Just make sure that you are matching up the cement with cement and gravel with gravel as needed. Then the cross multiplication will take you to the answer with ease, right? 3 marks for those 2 questions there, and you have only one other part here to do, and that's consumer arithmetic, of course. Can't escape that one. On the multiple choice paper, by the way, there is a whole section there I think it's from number 10 to about 20, where consumer arithmetic are present. So let's go for this question. So the cash price of a laptop is $1,299. It can be bought on hire purchase by making a deposit of $350 and 10 monthly installments. Hire purchase has two parts, really, right? The deposit and monthly payments. So the person would deposit what? $350, right? And then for 10 months, they would pay $120. So you'd multiply 120 by 10, and your answer is 1,550. You'd add the monthly payments total to the 350, right? And 2 marks. And one more mark now, and then we would have secured that 12 marks for that question there. The cash price is $1,299, as we know. The question is asking how much is saved if we would buy cash versus going on hire purchase. That's that 1,550, the hire purchase price minus the cash price. We would have saved $251. And that's the 12 mark for question 1 for that year. The question is, how difficult do you find this? It's not so difficult, right? All right, you're going on well. All right, we're on to our third question here. Question 1, computation and consumer arithmetic. All right, so for this, grab our answer pad here and let's nail it. Calculator, right? So it's 3.7 squared minus 6.24 divided by 1.3. All right, we have to be careful here not to be working out anything on across that minus sign there, unless they're taken care of. So the 3.7 must be squared, right? Giving us 13.69. And what's in the bracket on the other side? Would compute to 4.8. When you subtract them, 8.89. If you ask me personally, that is like a free 3 marks, right? Can't go in the exam and miss these marks, we have to capitalize on them. All right, moving on. This question, a total of 1,200 students at Topview High School, right? The ratio, teachers to student is 1 to 30. How many 30s, right, can we get from the 1,200? That would tell us the number of teachers that are there, right? Of course, earlier in the question before, I used proportion, remember? So we could say, all right, 1 teacher to 30 students. So how many teachers, right, to 1,200 students, right? And then we do what? Our cross multiplication procedure here. So 30 times x is 30x, and 1 times 1,200 is 1,200. We divide both sides by 30, we would still end up with our 40 there. So 40 teachers are present. All right, 2 marks. All right, so we're on to the other section of the question. 2/5 of the students own personal computers. 2/5, 2 out of 5, right? Times the number of students in the school, 1,200. 480 of them own personal computers, right? How many do not own personal computers? The question is asking. So you'd subtract that 480, those who own, from the number of students that are there. And 720 of them, these do not own personal computers. We have to be careful in terms of how CSEC point out a few things trying to get our attention. Look how, right? B part 2 of the question has the not. How many students do not? CSEC is basically shouting at us at this point here to say, hey, careful here. All right, so going on well. 2 marks for that question there. All right, open our answer pad again for the other part of the question. 30% of students who own personal computers also own PlayStations. Remember now, those who own personal computers were 480, 720 for those who do not own personal computers. All right, so we're talking about 30% now out of 100% of those who own personal computers of the 480. So we can divide those numbers, the 100 and the 480 by 10, and then we can divide 30 by 10, and 3 times 480 would give us 144 students. All right. They want us to express that answer there, the 144, right, as a fraction of the school, right? And so 144 SOHAM can go into, dividing both here by 12, right? So 12 into 144 was 12 times, and 12 into 1,200, 100 times. And actually, we can simplify our answer yet by dividing the numerator and the denominator there by 4, giving us 3/5. So 3/5 of the school, right, own personal computers. And that's another 11 marks, right? This question was rather short, but that's it. Question 1 seemed not to be much of a problem, is it? All right, very good. So we're moving on now to another question 1. Again, computation, number theory. Our answer pad here, and for the fraction, right? Actually, my approach is to leave that whole number to the side and then find my LCM to be 15. CSEC seem to like the 15 denominators, man. So 15 in 5 into 15, 3 times and 3 times over 4 there will give us 12. And 3 into 15 was 5, and 5 times 1, it was 5 there. And our final answer is 1 and 7 over 15, right? But as per usual, they're asking us now to divide that answer there by 2 and 2/5. All right, if we convert at this point to improper fractions, 1 times 15 is 15 plus 7 is 22. Change the sign to multiplication, and then 2 5s 10 plus 2 would give us 12 over 5. But when dividing fractions, we change the sign and then what? Reciprocate the fraction on the right. Then we cancel what can be canceled. So 5 can cancel 15, right? And 2 can go into 12 6 times and into 22 11 times. And then we just multiply across for our remaining answers. So 1 times 11 is 11. And 3 times 6 is 18 for 2 marks. All right, very good. All right, grabbing our answer pad now on this part again. Some people, luckily, you have calculators that can, approach this question straight. For some of us who are safe, though, we'd rather work this in parts to be. So the square root of 1.5625 is 1.25. And then the square of 0.32 means you're multiplying it by itself, not by 2. It's 0.32 times another 0.32, 1.1024. Our answer, 1.3524. Or another 2 marks. All right. Going well. Grabbing our answer pad, we're on the same question. This question is about the better buy. Which carton of orange juice is the better buy, right? 350 milliliters for $4.20, or 450 milliliters for $5.13. All right, to approach this question, right, it's easier to know the better buy if we know what the price for 1 milliliter is. So if we divide here the $4, sorry, and 20 cents by 350, the number of milliliters, and divide the 513 by the 450, then we would know what price for each milliliter. In the first deal, 0.012 is the price for 1 milliliter. And for the second, the price is 0.0114 per milliliter, right? So the better buy naturally would be the cheapest one. So actually, the 450 milliliter is the cheaper buy, which would mean that's the better buy. And for 3 marks. Or very good. So remember again, in this case, the better buy, if we find out what the unit price is, then we can see which one is the better buy. Consumer arithmetic, of course. Again, this question is a compound interest question. And Faye borrowed 9,600 at 8%, right? Compound interest. And we're calculating the interest on a loan after only the first year, right? There's 8% per year. And since we're talking about 1 year, it's 8 over 100 multiplied by 9,600. So 9,600 divided by 100, that's 96. And 8 times 96 would give us 768 for 1 mark, right? And that's the interest on a loan for the first year. All right, the other part of the question give us some information here. They say at the end of the first year, she repaid 368. Now, at the end, of the year, how much she's owing is the 9,600 plus the interest for that year, which is the 7,680, right? The question now, so that's a total of $10,368, right? How much did she still owe at the beginning of the second year? Now, she paid, 4,368. So how much is still owing, right? After we subtract those, she's still owing $6,000. That's it. 2 marks. And then to close this question with the other mark, right? The question is asking, calculate the interest on the remaining balance. So naturally, the remaining balance is $6,000. But how much is charged again? 8% of whatever remains. So 8% of the 6,000. 100 into 6,000 goes 60 times, and 60 times 8 is $480. 1 mark. What part of this question was most difficult? All right. So you're going well. You're going well. All right. Let's go to this other question 1. And as you can see by now, fractions, decimals, that's what CSEC is starting out with. And we all know that. At least for question 1 on the paper, we're confident about it, right? So using a calculator or otherwise, the exact value of even there. All right, so 3.9 in that first bracket there, we multiply it by 0.27. Answer is 1.053. And the square root, I think this is the third question that we're seeing now, the square root sign. By now, we're very good at it. Of 0.6724 is 0.82. And when we add those, 1.873. They're not asking us to express that answer in any other way. So that's the exact answer there for 2 marks. Oh, very good. And then for a fraction, again, you know that my method here is to put that whole number to the side and work with the smaller fraction here. All right, so 2 can go into 10 5 times, and 5 times 1 there is 5. And 5 to 10 2 times, and 2 times 4 is 8. For those who approach this question the way I do, you may end up in a little situation here, right? Because you cannot subtract 8 from 5. So what you have to do at this point, right, is to borrow from the 2 here. The whole number that's here, when you borrow from it, you're borrowing actually 10. because in this situation here, 10 is the denominator that completes the whole. So this 2 here actually means 10 over 10 plus another 10 over 10. So when you borrow from this 2, you're borrowing 10, all right? So you're carrying 10 to the 5 there, which would make it 15, and then 8 from 15, right, would give our answer to be 1 and 7 upon 10. For the persons who work this question the other way by writing this 2.5 as improper, you wouldn't be in that situation there. But this is the approach if you're doing it this way. All right, so naturally, we are dividing this answer. 1 times 10 plus 17 plus 1 plus 7 is 17 over 10 by the 3/4. Naturally, we're going to change the sign and then flip that fraction there to 4 over 3 instead. And then we're going to cancel what we can. Using 2 to cancel the 10 and the 4, we have 2. And 2 into 10 goes 5 times. So our final answer would be 34 upon 15. Some people, they would write it as a mixed fraction. 15 to 30 goes 2 times, and 4 upon 15. That, 3 marks. Easy. For practice, you can always go back to these papers and hide the answers from yourself and see if you could reach the answer all without looking at the solutions, right? That way, the concept will stick. All right, very good. Let's move on to the other part now. This is currency conversion, right? When we're doing currency conversion, the moment the question is written, the exchange rate is written like this, 1 unit going to another, then we can use this procedure here that says when going to the right, we multiply. When going to the left, we divide. Simply that. So when it's written, 1 unit going to such and such units of the other, then we can apply it like this. To the right, multiply, to the left, divide. All right, the question is asking, on a vacation, right? Steve used credit card to buy a camera for 250 Canadian dollars. What's the value of the camera in Jamaican dollars? Now, if you're converting from Canadian to Jamaica, and the exchange rate here will be going to what direction? To the right, right? So we just simply multiply. So it's 250 multiplied by $72.50, and then the Jamaican equivalent would be $18,125 for the camera, right? Simple, 2 marks, right? And then if the credit card limit that Steve is using is 30,000 Jamaican dollars, right? After buying the camera, how many Canadian dollars, right? Does he have left? Now, 30,000 would take the price for the camera from that, and that is $11,875, right? But the question is asking, for this remainder in Canadian dollars. On our exchange rate again, from Jamaican, 11,000, we're converting to Canadian. What are we doing this time? Not multiplying, we're dividing. By virtue of that, 11,875 divided by the exchange rate, and it's $163.79 for 3 marks. Not difficult at all. Very good, right? As you can see, the questions in the order, as we said, for question 1, computation, number theory, and consumer arithmetic, right? What we have just done is 5 questions from this category, all right? We'll be through with 50 questions when I'm finished with this series, and we will all have a good experience in terms of exposure to all the questions that come on the CSEC. So you won't reach question 9, for example, without knowing what it's like or seeing what the questions are like and how they are done. But congratulations for following through to this end. We'll see you in the next video.